Alright, welcome to another video. I'm Dr. Ford, the NICUDoc. And today I'm going to give you 5 tips to be able to go out with your baby safely during this coronavirus pandemic. Alright, let's get to today's video. Giving the trainees all those NICU secrets, teaching the families, bringing you physiology and the latest evidence in management of NICU babies. Just having fun with it. Alright, so again, I'm going to give you 5 tips to be able to go out with your baby and to do it safely during the coronavirus pandemic. First, we're going to be talking about sun protection. Then we're going to talk about social distancing for babies. And then we're going to address some signs that you can use to be able to keep others away from your baby. Number 4, temperature control for your baby. When do you know it's the right temperature for your baby? And number 5, we're going to discuss vaccines and the importance of that, especially now with the coronavirus pandemic. And stick around to the end, because I'm going to be talking about the one thing you must carry with you when you go out with your baby to meet the world. All right. Let's get to today's video. Okay, let's talk about sun protection. So the skin of a baby is very vulnerable, especially within the first few months. Why? The skin of a baby, first of all, is thin. As they grow, that thickness becomes greater and greater, and they're able to protect themselves from the sun. But not only that, they have lower amounts of something called melanin, which is a brown pigment that protects you from the sun. Even African American skin, babies can still, even though they have a greater number and greater volume of melanin, they can still get sunburned. So it's extremely important to protect them. But how do we do this? After 6 months, we use a sunscreen. And that's going to be another topic. I'll make another video in the near future. But as far as this video is concerned, we're going to be talking about the babies that are less than 6 months. So before 6 months, the American Academy of Dermatology recommends using protective clothing to be able to protect them from direct sunlight. That's all the way up to the wrists, down to the ankles. And you want to use a hat and glasses too. Not only are hat and glasses cute in babies, but they're actually serving an important function, and that is to protect the skin of the face as well as the eyes. The eyes don't have a whole lot of melanin, this brown pigment that protects you from the sun. And so using special glasses that are UV protective will allow the eyes to also protect yourself from ultraviolet light. Now, why don't we use sunscreen on babies? So babies greater than 6 months of age, you can begin to use sunscreen because the skin is actually thicker. In babies that are less than 6 months, because the skin is thinner and there is more volume of skin when in comparison to the actual weight of a baby, they can actually absorb some of the chemicals that are in the sunscreen. So we really want to avoid sunscreen in babies that are 6 months of life, and that's why we have to use protective clothing to be able to protect them from direct sunlight. Another thing you want to do is protect the baby from direct sunlight. If at all possible, always find the areas of shade. Whether you're walking on the sidewalk, find an area where there's shade. If you're resting, find a shady area under the tree if at all possible, so that you don't have the direct sunlight going on a baby. With that same token, you want to avoid the high intensity sun rays. And those are usually found between the times of 9 or 10 a.m. down to about 3 to 5 p.m. in the afternoon. Those are the areas where the sun can really burn, can really cause direct damage to the skin of a baby or anybody in general, but definitely when it comes to the vulnerability of the skin of babies, you want to avoid those times and basically go out with your baby before 9 or 10 o'clock and go, take a walk after 3 to 5 p.m. If you're going out on the stroller, make sure you have something that is able to protect your baby from the direct sunlight. Whether it's an umbrella, it's a small canopy, or something that will protect direct sunlight going to your baby. And one thing that's really important is when you go out with your baby, make sure that we have adequate amount of fluids. we want to make sure that your baby stays hydrated, because not only is the heat damaging to the skin, but also it causes sweating, and babies can get dehydrated fairly quickly. So you want to make sure that you are constantly keeping your baby well hydrated. Using all of these protective measures to protect your baby from the sun decreases the risk of developing skin cancer at a later age. So all of this starts now with your newborn baby so that you protect them as adults. So how do we do social distancing with babies? Well, it's very similar to adults as far as the distance is concerned. You do want to keep babies away from other adults, about 6 feet at least. One extra thing that you can do is that when you're going out with your baby, make sure you have some type of a covering or protective layer on top of the stroller. You can use a nice thin blanket or something, but that still allows for air to circulate inside the stroller. And that again sort of sends the signal that you don't want other folks to approach your baby, and it also keeps your baby protected in that sort of small environment of the stroller. So as part of social distancing, what's really hard is you have to distance your baby from sometimes some of the other family members or close friends. I know that there are grandparents that want to visit, that want to, touch a baby, pick them up, especially a newborn. Everybody's so excited. Unfortunately, right now is not the time. You really have to talk to your family members, let them know that there is a risk because of your baby's immune system being lower than others in general. There is a risk that they could really get sick if they get any type of virus, but especially right now with coronavirus. And so it's just a matter of communicating to your family and close friends that this is not the time, and then once this sort of blows over, you'll be able to have a party and bring everybody over to meet your baby, and everything's going to be super exciting. But you need to really make sure that your baby stays safe and away from other adults and other kids, again, especially if they have any symptoms, but just in general because of this coronavirus showing up sometimes without symptoms. So that way you keep that social distancing and you keep your baby safe. What you don't want to use is a mask on a baby. The American Academy of Pediatrics and the CDC do not recommend the use of a mask in babies less than 2 years of age. Why? There is an increased risk for suffocation, meaning you're not able to let go of that CO2 very well, and you're also not getting good oxygen that anybody, but obviously babies, need to be able to, oxygenate and keep their brains and all their organs nice and healthy. So it's extremely important not to use any type of masks or covering or shields or anything like that in babies less than 2 years of age. Just like adults with social distancing, you really want to avoid taking your baby out to highly populated areas where there's going to be a lot of adults and even kids roaming around. You want to try and avoid, going to the park where you're going to be surrounded by a ton of kids. You can go to the park and take nice walks in the park. It's really healthy mentally, physically, for the adult, for the baby as well, to get some nice fresh air, but you don't want to take him where everybody is congregating. So you want to avoid these kind of heavy populated areas. Same thing, the mall, movie theaters. And I know you have to go sometimes to the supermarket. If you can avoid going with your baby, that's obviously the best thing. If you have to, and we do the things we already talked about with the covering, washing your hands, all these things. But you really want to try and avoid those areas of highly populated folks to keep social distancing for your baby. All right, the next tip is really a bit of a trick to try and let everybody else know that you're really trying to keep your baby safe. One trick that you can do to let other people know that you're trying to keep your baby safe is actually to create a sign at home, or even purchase some from eBay or Amazon. And that sign can, be something funny, but at the same time, you are letting people know you don't want them to approach your baby. Something like, I've seen some signs that say, beware of the baby. You can have some fun with it if you want. But it, again, just kind of tells other people that keep your distance. I'm trying to do social distancing and keeping my baby safe. Aside from obviously having the blanket we talked about, you can also just, let other people know, hey, we are practicing social distancing, or to say, I have a young baby, we're trying to protect their baby, or even just say, hey, baby's sleeping, not a good moment right now. Just let other people know, be an advocate for your baby as you're gonna be as a grown-up and as a parent, but just kind of let them know this is not a good time. Okay, so let's talk about how we should dress the baby as we go out. We've talked about using something that's protective from the sun, but let's talk about actually temperature control. In general, in your house, you want to keep a temperature of about 68 degrees to 72 degrees Fahrenheit. And this is, this kind of varies. One gauge that you can do is to just kind of see how you're feeling. If you're cold in your house, your baby is going to be cold. If you're hot, your baby's going to be hot. And it's the same idea when you go out. If you feel like you need to wear a sweater to be able to go out, then make sure you cover your baby. But if you're feeling hot as you go outside on just a t-shirt and you have your baby bundled with 3 blankets, their ability to sweat is not very good, and so they will actually get hot. They will get hot outside, and that can be dangerous to the baby. So it's extremely important to try and regulate your baby's temperature with how you are. Assuming obviously you don't have an illness where you can't regulate temperature very well, or if you're someone who's always cold, then you might want to use another adult as a gauge in that situation. So at first, even though babies actually have sweat glands, they don't really sweat within the first few days, and it takes them a few days, even up to a couple of weeks, for them to begin to sweat. And it happens usually in the areas of the scalp down to the face. And then it takes them a few weeks to months for the whole body to sort of catch up and for them to be able to sweat completely and regulate their temperature through sweat. So they obviously rely on us. And that's where you yourself have to be their temperature gauge. Again, you feel cold, they're gonna feel cold. You need to dress up a little bit more, you need to dress them up a little bit more, and vice versa. So it's really important to feel comfortable and allow them to feel comfortable with good temperature regulation when you go out. Okay, the last one is make sure that when you're going to go out, your baby is vaccinated, is well vaccinated and received all the vaccines that it needs at the age at which they're going out. Newborn babies at first, they're gonna get within the first day or two their hepatitis B vaccine. Make sure that that's on board before you take your baby out. And if they're on a regular schedule, they usually get their vaccines at 2 months, 4 months, and 6 months. But obviously talk to your pediatrician, make sure you know your schedule for vaccines and that you're staying up to date. Especially right now with coronavirus, I mean, you really wanna make sure that you do not get sick, that your baby does not get sick and you have to go to the hospital, because again, that increases the risk of exposure to coronavirus or getting sicker with coronavirus. So really, 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 really important in general for babies to get vaccines, now more so. All right, thank you for sticking to the end. So let me go ahead and give you the bonus. The one thing that you always need to carry with you when you go out with your baby, and that is hand sanitizer with alcohol. Right now in the corona environment, you want to make sure that you protect yourself, and if anybody's going to be getting closer to you and to your baby, that you protect your baby as well. Now you need to make sure that the hand sanitizer actually says alcohol of at least 60% up to 90 or 95% to make sure that you can kill the coronavirus should it get close to your baby. Now, what you want to do is, if there's any adult that's even getting close, you yourself, your significant other, you need to make sure that you use the alcohol, you put it on your hands, and that it dries up before you touch your baby. Now, if a small amount of the hand sanitizer with alcohol goes on the skin of your baby, there is an extremely small risk of the actual alcohol going into your baby, but it's such a small amount that they're very safe. You obviously do not ever want to lather up your baby in, hand sanitizer. Now, there is a type of hand sanitizer called isopropyl alcohol or isopropanol, which actually is more toxic to the skin in general for anybody. But obviously, we talked about the skin of a baby being thin. That can actually go into the baby. And so you really want to try and avoid that. You want to look at the bottle and make sure that it says ethanol, alcohol, or ethanol. And that's the type of alcohol that is still very protective. It still kills the coronavirus, but less of that, it's less toxic to the baby. Less of that will actually get into the baby. So that's the one you really want to use. So always make sure you carry that with you. Make sure that if you're going to be touching something, you go ahead and use that hand sanitizer before you touch anything on the stroller, on your baby, and vice versa. Once you're done touching, use your hand sanitizer before you touch anything else. And that way, you're going to make sure you protect your baby as best as you can from coronavirus when you go out with your baby. So thank you again for staying till the end. Thank you for watching. Again, as usual, like, subscribe, hit that notification button, and I will be making more videos for you. So if you have any comments, questions, let me know, and I'll go ahead and answer them for you. Okay, until the next video, we'll see you later. Bye.